just helps you manage that aspect of your business better. You know.
And who would you admire the most now in terms of barbering?
Who would I admire the most?
Anywhere in the world, or even locally, or
I think, being honest, there's Sherm over in Rotterdam would probably be the guys that I'd admire most. We met him over in the show over in Wales, and not alone are they really cool guys and very humble guys, but they love barbering. They live for barbering. Like, I mean, literally 24/7. It's barbering. Yeah, it's phenomenal, and they're looking to improve the industry an awful lot. So it would probably be them, you know.
And what's their story like? What they new styles or?
Yeah, if you look at their work is very sharp. And the one thing that when I was doing my training initially was it was really instilled into me, the sharp finishes, the sharp tapers, the really sharp look. So I can kind of identify what they've done and how they've grown their brand. And you know, I mean, they look really cool guys as well, you know. It's the whole experience of what they're doing and the clientele they've attracted. Guys go into them, and 9 times out of 10 they don't. The client in the chair doesn't ask doesn't give them instructions.
No, they do.
They just say, guys, artistic license, and that's very difficult to get here in Ireland. You have a few like yourself, but you wouldn't have very many. And unfortunately, I think if someone doesn't have the artistic license, sometimes they're not fully achieving what they need to achieve artistically.
Okay.
So it's so I can kind of see what they've done and what they've achieved, which is super, because I mean, if you look at them on Facebook or Twitter or something, they have a huge amount of followers, and right down to even when we were over in the show, they had people queuing up to chat to them, you know. So I mean, which is rather unique in this industry, because the industry has changed so much that it's becoming more of a identifiable industry that everyone can kind of identify with, because most people go to the barbers, most gents go to the barbers, and it's that whole experience of going into the shop and having a chat with the lads, and you know, having a chat about where they were the night before, or what clubs they were at, or what talk about the football, or I think it's very real, you know. It's a real experience, and I think that's why barbering will never die. You know, the barbershops for me will never subside, because there's that element of it brings people together for a chat, and it bring, you know, so
it's kind of a bit like a pub in a way.
100%. It's the one thing about it is it's such a social job, because you're meeting people so regularly, and you're chatting, and they're telling you stuff that probably they wouldn't tell 90% of the people, you know. So it's a real social job, you know.
And if you could sit down and have a conversation with anybody, living or dead, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
If I could sit down with anybody, living or dead, and ask them one question, it would be. That's a tough question now. That's a tough question. I'd actually love to sit down with Bob Marley, and what I'd ask him, I don't know. I'm very interested in a lot of his old interviews and stuff like that, because to listen to him, he almost hypnotises you when he's actually talking about various different things, because he comes across as being this kind of such a good storyteller. I suppose what I'd ask him would be, who shot the sheriff? I don't know what I'd ask him. I genuinely don't. But I would actually like to sit down and have a conversation with him, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he'd be probably the guy, you know.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
It was kind of purposely I didn't like.
Yeah, no, it was one of those questions that there's a number of people there probably. I don't know for what reason I choose him, because obviously I need to ask him a question. But if there's one person that I'd like to be sitting down and having a conversation with, it would probably be with him. And it's kind of funny because if you look at a lot of his older interviews and stuff like that, a lot of the questions that he gets asked, you're kind of saying that's a waste of a question. Or, why did you ask him that? Or why did you kind of. I love to get more information about what his thoughts on the Rastafari side of things would probably be, you know.
Okay.
Because I've looked up a lot of stuff and I haven't had got that information through him, you know.
And I think a lot of people were saying that like he used to drink wine and he used to totally against the Rastafarian way, like, and he used to be very kind of arrogant. Some people were saying as well.
Absolutely. Well, we both my wife and I have been in Jamaica, and it's the coolest place I've ever been in my entire life. It's where we were down in Ocho Rios, which wouldn't have been. It would have been more geared towards the tourists. But there are places in Jamaica that you would be fairly dodged to go to, you know.
Yeah.
But no, they're really cool people. You know, they're really relaxed, obviously. For obvious reasons.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Jesus, yeah. And then, like, if you could make a phone call to yourself, the 20-year-old version of yourself, and what would you say to him? What bit of advice would you give to him?
I think what I'd say is just chase your dream, whatever that may be. Don't let anything get in your way. And work hard. If you have a goal, work hard to attain that goal, because when you do attain it, it becomes very rewarding. But I mean, as a young lad, it's very hard to say that. It's easy for me to say that as a 38-year-old now. Even when I talk to younger lads or lads that are on my Barber team, some of them you can see take it in, but some don't. You know, and it's very hard to get that point across to young people, because it isn't until you have so much life experience yourself you begin to realise that it's so true, you know.
And was there any barriers in the way? Was there any big barriers in the way? A lot of people, they say they had to overcome this and this to get to their point. Like, was there any big barriers you had to overcome to get to this standard?
Oh, big time. I mean, you come across barriers every day, but it's like an old saying, it's not the destination, it's the journey that makes and creates who you are and what you are. So these barriers are there for reasons, and I think by overcoming them, you'll achieve what you want to achieve more. But I think the one serious thing that I probably lacked as a young lad was planning and being able to plan things correctly. And you know, I might have had an idea in my head, but I wasn't able to plan or, you know, carry it out due to lack of planning. Whereas obviously now I find that through a lot of support and a lot of advice from people that have done very, very similar things. Because at the end of the day, nobody gets there alone. It's the people that's around them that gets them to where they need to be. Or, you know, if it's an idea that you have, you're not going to nurture that idea. It's the people that to support you in the relative area that would help you do that. So
you were saying like you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I read that somewhere and I thought it was very.
Tony Robbins.
Well, I think it was Tony Robbins, was it?
Brian Tracy.
Could have been Brian Tracy, it could have been Zig Ziglar, it could have been. I actually think it was Zig Ziglar.
Was it?
It was, yeah. If I can remember, either I think Jim Rohn relayed it from Zig Ziglar. I think I mean, they'd be kind of guys.
Tony Robbins got it from Jim Rohn.
It seems to be kind of a wheel. These guys, you know, they're all pick bits from one another and to get their thing across. But I think so. I think it's like everything. It's if you're being influenced, you're influenced by what goes into your mind, or you're influenced by people that are around you that are doing certain things. I mean, if you're working in a barber shop where nobody can cut hair, even though you might be able to cut hair, your standards are going to drop. Whereas if you're in a shop that's of a very high quality and everyone is looking at one another's work and encouraging one another to get better, you're going to improve. So I think that comment is very relevant in every aspect of life, to be honest with you, you know.
And any of the barbers listening now, like who are up and coming or who want to get into barbering, who are maybe like originally when I wanted to be a barber X amount of years ago, there was no places to actually do it locally. Like, how would they go about it now? People who necessarily aren't from the city, but who are in areas where there's no barbering culture or anything like that, how would they go about it?
Unfortunately, there's very few academies at the moment. There are barbershops that run courses, but obviously due to lack of regulation, there's no real weight behind the courses that they run. So it's very difficult to I couldn't recommend any, to be perfectly honest, you know, because I haven't really come across any due to the lack of regulation, you know. I mean, what I recommend people to do is try and find a barbershop, go in and say, listen, I'll work for you for free. I'll come in Fridays and Saturdays or any time, you know, any kind of spare time that I have, I'll work for you for free. And if someone wants it badly enough, that's what they do, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and they learn. Obviously, they're going in and they're learning, so they're not. It's effectively they're not going in there to work for free because they're actually getting, they're getting knowledge and they're getting, you know, a teaching of how to cut hair while they're in there, you know. But yeah, that's what I'd suggest to people, you know.
And just go through like quickly, just who's your team? Who would you have on the barber team at the minute, like?
On the barber team at the minute, there's Garrett Higgins, there's Morgan Curtin, Callum, there's Aidan Smith, Sabrina Rabson, Blake Dunn. We have a very, very good bunch of lads that are very, very very artistic and very creative, and kind of probably through their own kind of push and drive, they're looking to improve all the time, which is good because that will reflect back onto our customer base then and help our business, but kind of help the industry in general then as well, you know.
They're young, they're social, like.
Very young, very social, exactly, yeah. I think it's very important to have, if you have barbers on your team, that they are young, social, because they will need the ability to be able to build a clientele, which is paramount today, you know, because obviously if someone isn't going to be dragging in people, they're of no value to you. And that's the one thing that has shifted back again is barbers with clienteles are more valuable to barber shops than those that don't.
In terms of being a barber now, how long have you done it in total?
I'm probably cutting hair 22 years or 23 years.
And what would be the best memory that you've had in all those 22 years? Best story, best memory, one thing?
Of cutting hair, of an experience cutting hair on the floor, or just in general?
Just in the barber, as a barber in general. Maybe it could have been a story, someone came in, someone's hair you cut, something happened, anything.
Being honest, there was lots of different incidents. I remember one very funny incident from a good pal of mine called Alan McCarthy, and he was. We went back to the barber shop for a few beers after the nightclub, and it was in Fox's Bow, which is a small lane in Limerick, and it would have been about 4 a.m. and Alan turned around to me and he said, "Just you'd never throw me in a few highlights there, would you?" Alan, I was.
It's like 4 in the morning.
Yeah, big strong lad, and played a lot of rugby. Very funny character, and he says, "You never throw me in a few highlights." And I said, "Come on, so jump up there." So it went down away, and I had one of these caps. But as I was putting the cap in his head, I think the cap slightly slit. Oh no! Unbeknownst to myself, because obviously there was a bit of alcohol on board at the time. So actually a lot of alcohol involved. About 12 hours of alcohol involved. So there I was putting away, no problems whatsoever, and pulled the highlights through, put the bleach on, covered it over, and he said, "Is it alright if I sit down on the couch for a minute?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Sure, you'd be grand there for 40 minutes, you know." So I said, "Even if you fall asleep, I'll wake you." So Adam went over anyway, sure, 5 minutes later he was asleep on the couch. So I said, I'll go over myself and I'll sit on the other couch for a couple of minutes. So all I remember was, "Jesus Christ," he says, "get this thing off my head." So I woke up, and he woke up, and Alan then stands up, and there's the towel is everywhere, and I says to him, "Are you alright?" He says, yeah, grand. He says, but we need to get this off my head. And he says, "What time is it?" He says, "It's 8:25, right?" They were actually in his hair for the bones of 4 hours, right? So my dread was, right, now I use very, very low percentage of peroxide. So my thing was, right, hopefully we might be able to salvage something, because obviously I thought all his hair was going to disintegrate into nothing. So brought him over to the sink and took off the bleach. Next minute I went, "Oh," right, and he went, "I don't like that. Oh, what's after happening?" He said, "Well," I said, "the bleach is after leaking, and you have the map of Australia in the back of your head." And it was a Sunday morning, so there was nowhere I could get a dark colour to go over his head. So he says, "What do we do?" So I said, "I don't know." So later on that night we were inside in the Icon. We just probably went drinking all day again, being young fellas that we were. And we went away and we bought a black marker in the local shop. So every now and again Alan would stick his head down the dance floor and take out the marker, and I'd run over and I'd colour in the map of Australia in the back of his head. But the amount of business that I got as a result of it was actually massive, because we went on the tear that Sunday, and it was a really sunny day, and the amount of people that were saying, "Geez, what happened to your hair?" "Well, that's the map of Australia that I wanted in the back of my head," or there was some funny jibe that he made up, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, that's cool." So for me, that was probably one of the funniest experiences, which wasn't very professional, and I don't recommend it for anyone to do, but it was a funny experience. Yeah.
And was there any? I'll just check the time really quickly. Yeah, we're going good. We're going to strike. And is there any stories now that you were like, "Oh God, no, that was a bad day," or "This was a bad day," or anything like that?
Being honest, there was a couple of times where some staff members may have left you down, where you could have. I remember one particular Friday where we were down 2 bodies inside in town in Babylon, and I went in there at about 8:45, and I didn't get out of there until around 10:25. Yeah,
no break.
It was literally like.
Food, no,
it was phenomenal. But that's the one thing that you do find in our industry, is that if you are very busy, you just work away. You know, I mean, it's something that you're not always very busy, but when you are, you try and make hay while you can, because you can't guarantee that that's going to happen again. So
yeah,
or on a regular basis. So when it does happen, you need to tear into it. You know.
Yeah, because I remember Brian Hackett goes before, he was on about one in particular client he used to have, and like they were all going, "He's going to you. He's going to you, that fella's going to you."
Yeah.
And then he used to go, yeah, that's grand. And I was saying to him, like, do you lose any business over these kind of guys, like these dangerous guys coming into you, like, or anything like that? Like, did you have any experience, anyone coming in, and he would go, "That fella's coming in"? "No, I'm going to you."
Yeah, I'd have had a lot inside in town. A lot of different characters, a lot of very colourful characters that would have been in that. If somebody saw someone in the chair, they may not come in. It might be because they might be from a different family, or they may not just like that particular individual. But in town, you're an awful lot more susceptible to it, because you don't have as much control over who's going to walk in your door, because you just don't know who's walking around the town. Whereas in the suburban areas, you still don't have as much control, but you have an idea who the faces are a little bit more in the suburban areas, I think, you know.
Some of them are cool though, some of them just come in and get their hair cut, like.
Some of them would shock you. Some of the ones that you'd read on the newspapers are they'd be sitting down and they're just your normal Joe Soaps, but obviously circumstances have created what they've got involved with, and so whatever has resulted in happening has happened, you know. But no, they'd come in and they'd chat away. You wouldn't think they're involved in what they're involved in, you know.
And what was the scariest thing though as a barber, outside of that even, like what would be the scariest thing that as a barber would have been opening a shop for the first time or cutting your first hair or something really scary?
I think one of the most daunting things for me at the time was, I remember Jim Kemmy was a politician, or to mercy him now, he's gone to a better place. But Jim came in and I used to wash Jim's hair, and he would have been a client of Gavin and Moore's, and the one particular day he knew I had been cutting hair, but I hadn't completed a full haircut.
Yeah.
I've been doing half haircuts, and the lads have been finishing them, or you know, we alternate on the chair. I'd start some and then the lads would continue, and then I'd go back and do some more. So Jim was in a rush this particular day, and he said, Pat, listen, I'm in a rush, is there any chance you trim it up? All I want is a small bit off all around. So I said, well, of course, Jim, you know, I'd love to. So I said, is that okay, Declan? Declan knew I had the ability to do it. He knew that was never in question, because if it was, he wouldn't have let me do it. So brought Jim over to the chair, sat him down, and if anyone knows Jim, he would have been a real character, you know. And
was he famous, or was he?
Yeah, he would have been one of the founder members of the Labour Party.
Oh.
And here in Ireland. And Jim just said, listen, he said, just take a small bit off all around. So we were talking about things in general, and I was fairly relaxed, you know. I wasn't really, you know, this is my first haircut, you know. I wasn't really like that, until it got to the point where I was lining out the edges of the cut, when he said to me, I said, will I take much off the sideburns, Jim? And Jim said to me, oh, don't know, just straighten them out, because I'm on this Tonight show later on tonight, right? Which would have been your prime time of